Hello, I'm Jeff Johnston, host of the Living Undeterred podcast, and today we have a very interesting story and exciting guest, and I'm really happy she could make it out of her busy schedule as a Division I athlete to take the time to talk about these important issues. I think will be very rewarding for everybody. So, with that, I'm going to introduce Taylor Roberts, and she is a sophomore. Is that right?
I am.
At the University of Florida, and she's on the women's golf team. So, Taylor, welcome to the Living Undeterred podcast, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and your story caught my eye. I was on social media, and I was going through Twitter, I think it was, and I saw our good friend Kevin Rinker make a comment about something you're doing to raise money and awareness for mental health. And immediately I saw the AJGA, I saw leadership links. And these are things over the years I've become very accustomed to talking about and really admire what the AJGA has done. So I saw what you were doing. You and I talked a few times, and I wanted to get you on the podcast to have a conversation about not just mental health, but about some of the issues that we're having, especially with adolescents and kids in college, the next generation of our leaders of our country, of our world, and talk about some of these issues you guys are having, some of the problems with social media, and some of the ways that you're trying to approach this in a very positive way. So with that, let's just talk a little bit about where you're at right now and how is school going and how is the golf team this year?
Yeah, so this year I'm redshirting, so I'm still like
Okay.
practicing and stuff with the team. But it's kind of nice to get like equated to like UF. I just transferred here from Florida State, so just to get used to like a new campus and new teammates and coaches. I thought it was like the best decision for me, but it's going really well so far. I love it here. It's a different change from Tallahassee, but I like it a lot. I have really awesome teammates. They're really supportive, and so are the coaches. And I'm just really proud to be a Gator now. And school's going really well too. I'm majoring in education with a
Okay.
concentration in disabilities.
Hmm.
I really enjoy what I'm learning right now, and I actually just picked my classes that I'm really excited about. There's one about learning about the stigma of mental health, so I'm like really excited to learn about that. I mean, I know a lot about it now, but I'm sure I can learn a lot more too.
What's your first memory of golf?
Um, I think my grandfather and my grandma, they took like a group of my cousins. There's four of us to I think it was like somewhere down south, like Naples area, on like a trip with just all of us, and they got me a pink bag with golf clubs in it. So those were like my first ever golf clubs. I think that's my like earliest memory of golf.
And how old were you, do you think, when you first had your first like competitive tournament, or do you even remember that?
Yeah, so my first competitive tournament, I don't know if you know Alexa Pano, but she is
Mm.
like a really high class golfer, and I just started playing golf, and it was just like a tournament like in my neighborhood, and I think I shot like 60 on 9 holes, and she was like, and I was like topping the ball and like everything that you can imagine, and she shot like 2 under. So that's like the first time
Wow.
I ever played a tournament. Come a long way since then.
Did you play other
But
sports growing up, or did you just kind of get
yeah,
fixated on golf?
I swam at a really young age, and I played basketball for a year. My grandfather really wanted me to play softball because he's a big baseball guy. Baseball kind of runs in our family. My dad played in college,
Hmm.
and my grandfather and my older cousin. He wanted me to play softball, and I tried that, but I wasn't too good at it, and I played basketball as well. I think I just said that, and soccer actually. Played soccer throughout middle school, and then I broke my ankle 3 times, so I decided
Mm.
to stick with golf. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that certainly injuries can be an issue. But so do you have brothers and sisters in?
I do. I have a younger sister. She's a senior in high school. She plays lacrosse and she's going to Ohio State for
Okay.
lacrosse. Yeah.
So in high school, you decided to focus pretty heavy on golf, and I'm assuming then you played a lot of the. Now, where's your home state from? Are you from Florida then?
Yeah, I'm from Parkland, Florida. I was born in Boca Raton. But I actually in middle school I decided to be homeschooled for golf
Oh,
and
okay.
for other reasons. That so I spent middle school through like my junior year of high school doing online school. Just I traveled more, let me do some other stuff that I wanted to do.
So when do you think you really got into playing competitive junior golf? Like what was the age where pretty much 12 months a year you're traveling around playing in tournaments, with the high school team and pretty much golf was what you wanted to be.
I think around like 14,
Okay.
that I realized that I could like do something with golf. And I started winning at like local levels, and then I kept working myself up. But golf started off as like a hobby that I just loved being outside and in nature, and then I loved it so much that I ended up being good at it because I spent so much time doing it.
It's kind of where you and I are talking about my son Ian, who
Yeah,
plays at the University of South Dakota, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Impact Cup that you're doing this July. And Ian's been he's really excited about playing with you in that event. And
yeah, I'm
the
super excited.
two of you raising a lot of money and raising a lot of conversation on this topic about mental health. So when you decided that you wanted to play college golf, I know when I went through this with my son and every parent out there that goes through recruiting, it tends to be more of a miserable experience than a positive one. Did you feel that way with recruiting coming out of high school to college? Did you feel every putt was like stressful that, coaches were following you, or did you just play golf and not worry about it?
I remember the first tournament college coaches were at. I think I was in 7th or 8th grade. It was at Furman, and this tournament is known to have so many coaches out there. It was an AJGA tournament. I remember being really nervous. Some of the coaches were on the first tee with their phones out, like right in front of you. But I committed at a really young age. I committed freshman summer. So I remember it being, like, a hard process because my dad tried to, like, get me prepared for, like, talking to coaches because it was, like, the first time in my life that I was, like, advocating for myself, um, so I remember that, I think initially I felt a little bit pressure when certain coaches would watch me
Hmm.
because I knew I wanted to go to a school. There are some coaches I played better in front of, which is it's kind of funny because the Florida State coach, I used to get nervous when she would come to watch me because I knew, like, I wanted to go there, and then the Florida coach, every time she watched me, I would play really good, which I find it really ironic.
That is it. That's
Um,
very interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I remember the Florida coaches, recruiting me at a pretty young age, and it's kinda special that I ended up back here. They're great people.
Yeah, through the AJGA, which again, for people who aren't aware, it's the American Junior Golf Association, and I kind of equate it to the PGA of professional golfers. It's probably the highest level junior golf out there. I know when we played AJGAs, there was fields where people from China and Singapore and
Yeah,
Taiwan and Canada and Mexico and I mean everywhere you could Russia, anywhere possible you could see kids playing junior golf. AJGA was kind of the pinnacle. So we started in the AJGA. I think Ian's we were probably late. I mean, I think Ian's first tournament was probably his freshman year for AJGA.
yeah. I was,
Uh,
around the same time, actually. I didn't even know what, like, stars were and stuff.
right, we didn't either. We didn't either.
Like,
And
yeah. Someone came up to us and were like, "Oh, you should play an AJGA tournament." And my dad, a baseball guy, doesn't really we didn't had no idea about AJGA. And I remember the first tournament I played, I was in contention to win, and I actually
mm,
came in 3rd. And it was like an open AJGA, and someone comes up to me and they're like, "Congrats." I'm like, "What do you mean congrats?" Um, but I was exempt, like, right off the bat, and I didn't no idea what that meant, but it's kinda funny looking back at it.
Yeah, I'm quite fond of those times because, for our family, Ian was a sophomore. And I explained to you kind of the situation. Actually, it was the day of districts,
Yeah.
Ian's sophomore year, and our high school had never made state. We're not a golf program. And I was taking Ian to go to districts like every parent does. I was going to drop him off with the team, head back to my house, pick up my wife, and we were going to drive up to the golf course about an hour away and watch Ian's team compete for state. Well, at 6:30 that morning in the parking lot, with the golf clubs in my hand, the phone rings and the rest is history. They found our son, Ian's older brother, Seth, dead from a fentanyl poisoning in heroin at the age of 23. And in that moment, everything kind of froze for me. And I didn't even tell Ian anything. I just got in my car thinking, how am I going to tell my wife? Our son died. And I felt really bad for Ian because, he's only 16 at the time. And mom, I never missed a tournament ever. And to just have me get in the car and leave had to be very traumatic for him. And then he went up that day and played in the tournament and actually double bogeyed the last hole. And we missed state by one shot as a team. And so Ian came home devastated that he let everybody down. That was his thoughts. Obviously, you guys make mistakes on the golf course. You're not letting anyone down. I mean, it's pretty clear. But that's the way he felt, and you kids all carry the weight of the world's pressures on you. And that causes a lot of the mental health issues that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But Ian came home and said, Dad, I'm sorry, I double bogeyed and blah, blah, blah. And I said, Ian, I got much bigger things to talk about today, and then I had to explain to him that his brother was dead. And the beauty of sports, Taylor, and I write about this in my book, and I'm going to get you a copy, is the next year we had districts back at the exact same golf course, which, in high school, they typically rotate the courses. And so it was very odd to go back to the same course. And lo and behold, I didn't go that day because I was real nervous. And the media was there because Ian had raised like $40,000 through golf, through the AJGA and stuff
Mhm.
for substance abuse and addiction for
Yeah.
kids. And so I knew the media was going to be there. So I decided to stay home. Well, lo and behold, Taylor came down to the last hole and Ian had an 18-foot putt. And if he doesn't make it, we lose a card back and we don't go to state. And it's for birdie. Same hole he double bogeyed the year before when his brother died. He makes the putt.
Oh, wow, that's
And our
amazing. I
team
got the
goes to state
chills.
for the first time in school history. And his brother died about 2 miles from that golf course. It was in the same town. His tournament was the same town as where Seth died. So where I'm going with this long story is that golf became something for our family. And at that moment, we realized we needed to start doing more. And so that's when we got involved in more fundraising through the AJGA, and that's the Jerry Cole Sportsmanship Award that Ian ended up winning. And
Mhm.
golf has just been this amazing vehicle, kind of a beacon of hope for our family. And, now you're here on my podcast and we're talking about what you've discussed publicly, your fight or battles or struggles. I don't like any of those words personally, because we all have them. Your struggle with whatever you have is, I have a mental health issue as well. I'm dealing with very two traumatic events in my life. So I deal with this every day. But where I'm going with this is my long segue, Taylor, is that, you've embraced this mental health challenge and you transferred from Florida State. Why don't you talk a little bit about why and kind of when did you realize that you were having these internal struggles? And then what you think vulnerability has done for you? What do you think your ability to share your story has done to help you in your healing?
Um, so I didn't realize that I was struggling as bad as I was struggling until the end of my freshman year. So I had spent the fall and spring at Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I kind of describe it as like I was kind of robotic. During COVID, we weren't allowed to do anything. Went to class, went or actually classes were online, so I scratch that.
Yeah.
I didn't go to class.
And that didn't help at all, I
And I
bet.
went to the golf course and workouts were at the golf course, so most of my time was at the golf course. And then I came back to my room in a kind of confined dorm room. Um, and I just did that till I left in the spring. And I remember being at nationals, and all I wanted to do was go home. And
Hmm.
I mean, nationals is the pinnacle of college golf, and to be there and not want to really play,
Mhm.
it kind of spoke to how much I like needed to go home. And, I remember going home and my parents saying that I wasn't the same person that left a year ago. I mean, I didn't really get to spend time with them because of COVID. We had rules that we weren't
Right.
allowed to hug on the golf course when I saw
Yep.
them. So they would come watch, but it was literally like any other spectator. They would clap, they would watch my round, and they would leave. And I
Right.
didn't get to spend any time with them. So they didn't realize like how bad of a spot I was in until I got home. And I kind of describe when I got home as this like gigantic bubble like bursting, because all the emotions I had like felt and like at school I was like that robot kind of like bursted when I got home, because I was in like the comfort of my own house with
Mhm.
my parents and my sister that allowed me to just feel everything that I was going through.
Mhm.
Um and that's the point where I realized like, oh my god, like I'm not okay. But it wasn't, I was crying for, like, a month straight when I came home, and I just started to go to therapy. And the first couple, sessions, I was like, "Oh, I don't even deserve to be here, my issues aren't that big, like, why are my parents spending money on me to do this?" And then, like, a couple probably, like, 4 or 5 sessions in, I realized that I needed to open up and, like how you said, like, be vulnerable and talk about things, because I had kept so much inside that I needed to finally start talking about it. And so I spent the whole summer, going to therapy, which in the beginning, my mom was like, you should go talk to someone." I was like, I don't need to talk to someone, I'm fine." And if it wasn't for her, like, I really don't know where I would be today,
Mhm.
because she just saw something in me that I didn't see. Um,
So
but
this therapist, was that at the university, or is this somebody that was not part of the sports program?
No, so this was I had went home for the summer and saw a therapist at home.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you feel that was a big deciding factor in you being able to cope and work through what you were going through?
Yeah, definitely. It was like, so I went to individual therapy and then I did dialectical behavior therapy, like
Mhm.
DBT. And that's a 6-month course. So I actually just finished it early this spring because I started it in the summer. And I think that paired with individual therapy helped like rewire my thinking and go through everything that I experienced at Florida State, process it, cry about it,
Mhm.
and just understand it, and has helped me become a stronger person. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm a lot stronger now that I have went through everything that I did than I was coming out of high school. But I mean, it's still every day is a battle, but I feel like now I know that I have support and that
Mhm.
I'm not alone, and which is like the biggest message that I'm trying to create through the Impact Cup is that like we all experience this where we can all be vulnerable together. And also like creating the Impact Cup to create awareness and support for other people that may not have had a mom that could realize it like my mom was there for me.
Do you still see your therapist every week or?
I don't. I'm switching to a therapist on campus because I
Okay.
like the interaction better in person.
Yeah.
Um, but my therapist at home, we worked out that I like had finished everything I wanted to
Yeah.
work on,
Right.
and if I needed to come back, just to text her.
You
But
know,
she's
one
actually, oops,
Go
sorry.
ahead,
She's
sorry.
actually she's working to create like different activities for the Impact Cup, so she'll be there.
Oh, great. One of the
Yeah.
things that I'm trying to do is to work on changing the narrative, and that means stigmas and labels.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I can ask you about your therapist is improvement, because years ago, that was a secret. It's like Taylor didn't want anyone know she was seeing a therapist. Well, now everyone's seeing a therapist.
Yeah.
You're almost odd if you aren't seeing one. It's kind of like changing your oil in your car now. It's like not that big a deal. So I think it's great that you at your age can talk about this publicly, and I admire what you're doing, and that's one of the reasons what drew me to your story. And now ultimately, your story is going to be embedded in our tour that we're doing in 44 days. We leave around the country. Your story is going to be part of that, and it's simply because of a post on Twitter. And I go back to many of the relationships I've met and the very heroic people I've met in my life came from vulnerability. It came from either you or me opening the crack of that door and allowing people to feel, hey, it's okay to tell somebody I'm going to a therapist, or it's okay to say I'm not doing good. I think it's so rhetorical for someone to say, well, how you doing, Taylor? Oh, I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you aren't. Maybe you're having a really bad day for your own reasons, and we should be able to say that.
Yeah.
We should be able to say, you know what, I'm not really doing that great today, but thanks for asking.
Yeah, it comes off so easy when someone asks you, "Oh, how you doing?" and just to lie about it.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I try not to and I try to be more aware of it now, but then you answer someone and then they're all worried about you. So then it's hard. But I agree that society is that answer is like, "Oh yeah, I'm great," but we're really not.
I think I saw a statistic that like 1 in 5 Americans have in the past year dealt with a pretty severe mental health issue or crisis. That's a large number. If you think of just in the course of your day, you go to a class, Taylor, you may have 30 people there. 1 in 5 has
Right.
had a problem. And then you walk down the street and you walk by 100 people, or you go to a tournament. I mean,
Yeah.
even the spectators, when you're in a tournament and you're looking out at us, we're looking at you guys as athletes. You're looking back at the parents. 1 in 5 of those people have mental health challenges. So we're in a big boat together. I've talked about it, plenty on my podcast, in my book, all the conversations I have with people about my own challenges of, not only bearing a child, but then bearing my wife on, a few years later. Her death was due to, losing a child. Some mountains are just too tall, too high to climb, I like to say. And so, I've dealt with two really difficult tragedies in my life. And then on top of that, my mom died in November. So she was 89 and we had a great relationship. So death has been my obstacle, has been my barrier. It's been the thing that's been my hardest thing to deal with. But I've learned, like you have, to, rewire how I look at things. Um, I don't know if you know much about Stoicism, but it's something I practice, and it's a philosophy. It's an ancient Greek philosophy. It's a very pragmatic, very kind of a realistic way to look at life. And they talk about reframing. And that's
Mhm.
probably what you did with your therapist and some of
Yeah.
the sessions you're in, is like, okay, somebody dies. Well, it doesn't have to be framed as something that's deconstructive, something that's going to just chip away at you and ultimately kill you. It can honestly be something constructive. Death can be an opportunity to become a better, not a bitter human. And so here's, whatever you're going through, Taylor, um, you need to look at that as opportunities. And I talk about this a lot with Ian because, he carries a big burden as well. Division I athlete like you, but he doesn't have a mom. I mean, you've had the ability to have that great experience with your mom. Ian doesn't have that right now. He doesn't have for the rest of his life. Um, and his brother, and he's trying to take a class load and be a Division I athlete. So when Ian comes to me and he's very, challenged with some things, I have to, as a dad, say, well, I think all you kids are. There's so much pressure on you guys today as Division I athletes to succeed, not just on the course, but with your grades. in your school, and people are always, looking at you from that perspective, and that's got to create, some undue pressures for you guys as well. So I think what you're doing, what Ian's doing to raise awareness, and then I also talked about Sam Gary, who's in my book, which he was the first, junior golfer I met that mental health was his ambition. That's what he wanted to focus on. And Sam runs the Kick It for a Cause nonprofit. He has a kickball tournament every year that he raises money for mental health. And it's like, so here's you and Ian and Sam, three kids in college that are really on the forefront of changing the narrative. So I applaud you what you're doing. So with that you can tell I'm into long segues. Talk about the Impact Cup. For people that aren't golfers, explain what the goal is of an Impact Cup, who's eligible, what your purpose is, how can people get involved, and then I want to spend some time kind of on what your desires are as you get through college and looking down the road, where you want to be with mental health advocacy. So let's talk about the Impact Cup
Yeah.
first.
So the Impact Cup, so after going through everything that I went through at Florida State, therapy throughout the whole summer, it wasn't until I was in like a stable place where I realized that I was so fortunate to get out of something that what I went through. And with that, I mean, my parents gave me resources to go to therapy, and I thought to myself, not every person has the same resources that I have, and maybe they don't have parents that can see that in someone. And I created a charity tournament my senior year in high school for
Hmm,
COVID relief, and we raised over 40,000 for that event. But I
that's
was like,
awesome.
yeah, I was thinking mental health and this reason is so much bigger and stronger than how passionate I was for COVID. So I reached out to the AJGA and I was like, "What do you guys think about this idea?" And they jumped all over it. So basically, the mission for the Impact Cup is to create awareness, destigmatize the stigma of mental health, and ultimately bring college golfers together, have a good couple days, and um, create activities for them to so they realize different things within themselves as well. But the money we are raising, I feel like, is the biggest thing because it's giving other people access to mental health resources um, through the Generation Next project and the AJGA ACE grant. But for people that want to be involved, um, we are trying to we're trying to get the most money raised in like the AJGA history. That's like our main goal.
Hmm.
But we'll see if we get there or not. But just to raise any amount is gonna make a difference in the world. I always say if I can impact one life, like I did my job, and that's what I try to go in every day and help other people. I'm really big into community service, and the Impact Cup is something really close to me just because I was really affected by mental health, and it's something that I try to prioritize every day along with being a student athlete, a daughter, a sister, and stuff like that.
Well, you are going to be impacting thousands of people.
Thank you.
I have no doubt when you get closer to the actual day of the event, I'll be promoting it heavily on our tour because we'll actually, I think we're about half done by the time we come to Georgia. So we'll have a lot of opportunities to kind of turn the spotlight on what you're doing. So, in regards to people getting involved, they can donate online. I'll have a link on this show, but how can people directly, if someone watching this uh, wanted to reach out and donate or talk to you, I guess what's a good way to do that?
Yeah, maybe you can post my phone number or
Hmm.
email. I'm open to talking to anyone. I think I went through a lot and I could offer some advice to people. I think the 6-month course of DBT helped me a lot, and it's something that is really expensive to take, so not everyone has the access to do that. And if I could offer some of those skills that I learned, I would be totally opening to do that. And if anyone wants to like share their story, we can put it on like the Impact Cup, like tweet it out or something like that with like a hashtag or something like that.
And you mentioned the Generation Next project. What
Mhm.
specifically is that?
Okay, so the Generation Next project, so Bobby Jones' great-grandson, is Robert Black, and when he heard my story, he wanted to partner with me to create the Impact Cup, so he's kinda working behind the scenes with me, um, and his it's a nonprofit, to raise awareness for mental health, and he's creating a retreat for, parents and their kids to go and learn about, um, like, the mental side of golf ball, but like an interactive experience, and those were I think they're all over the country, primarily in Atlanta though, I believe, and he also has another side of it called the Positivity Project, which is every $2,000 raised, goes to implement mental health, resources in elementary and middle schools.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah,
the money that is raised will go to both parts of that along with the AJGA ACE grant.
I certainly need to reach out to him and talk to
For
him about
sure.
our nationwide initiative, because that's really where I think, if you look at initially when this idea came up, Taylor, we're going to call this the Opioid Awareness Tour. So I wanted to go around the country and just talk about fentanyl and all the issues with addiction with opioids and all that. And then after what I went through with my wife and her own battles that weren't opioid related, specifically alcohol, I finally realized that mental health is a wheel, and each spoke is a certain area, like alcohol, drugs, gambling, food addictions, whatever your issues are. Those are spokes on the wheel. So we rebranded this whole tour to the Living Undeterred, which is kind of what my my brand is, I guess, is what I'm trying to get people to have, this really a living undeterred mindset, that no matter what happens in your life, you have to ask yourself a question: do things happen to you, or do things happen for you? And that's a very great question to ask yourself as you go through life. And you could almost put this on a piece of paper and just keep it with you at all times. Do things happen to you, or do things happen for you? And then, however you answer that will dictate the quality of the rest of your life. Because if you answer it, well, things happen to me, then you become a victim. And now you're living a victim mindset. If you say things happen for me, now that's an opportunistic way to look at. So, for example, like with death, how in the world could you trick your brain to think that the death of a child happened for you? Well, I ask people, how can you not think that way? Because the other way of thinking is destructive, you know? And so in your case, whatever happens, in a given day, if you can say, well, this happened for me. Maybe you missed a putt from 2 feet to win a big tournament, the biggest tournament of your life. How could you possibly say this happened for you? Right? And
Yeah,
that's the
that's
mindset. That's an optimistic, positive way to live your life. And that's the way the Stoics kind of looked at everything, was from that type of lens. And so the same event, missing a putt, the same event can mean so many different things for so many people. And someone who has a living undeterred mindset is going to look at those as opportunities. Hey, maybe I'm just not that good at that distance. Maybe that's my opportunity to putt better, right? Maybe I need to learn to
yeah.
read greens better. Maybe I just spend more time reading the booklets that the coaches give me before the tournaments. Instead of saying, "Oh, there was a spike mark, or there was mud, and then you start becoming a victim. And our society is already pretty darn good at being a victim, you know. So,
Yeah, it's such a in-depth, um, thought process. I actually just wrote it down so I can remember it. I really like that, so thank
yeah,
you.
I do too. It's just, and you actually, when you're talking to people in your presentations, you can, especially kids,
Yeah,
say there's one sentence to ask yourself all day long, all day long. Do things happen to you, or do things happen for you? And if you just kind
yeah,
of get your brain to kind of believe that is kind of the great question of all time, then you go through life and you still have bad days. I mean, I do everything I can to stay in a good place. I meditate, I work out, I read, I avoid toxic relationships. That's another big thing, Taylor. I think
Yeah.
at your age and even adults, we harbor too many too many people that are in our lives that are toxic.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something you see when you're dealing with some of your peers, is the negative effects of toxic relationships.
Yeah, I definitely do. After going through like Florida State, I realized that not all my friends at Florida State are gonna be my friends, especially when I transfer to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And even like friends from high school and just growing up, we go different paths, and I think it's important to not to hang on to people that are negative. And since I'm so focused on like having a positive outlook on life now, um, people that are talking negative about their lives 24/7, I'm not gonna be friends with anymore. And
Well, they're
um,
not going to want to be friends with you, because
yeah,
you're not talking down to their level,
yeah.
and you're just so in a different world that they're going to go on to other negative people.
Yeah, I it's kind of like within our team because I had a bad round and I'm not dwelling on it. Like it happened, like I used to dwell on it. I used to not sleep because I played bad. And now I'm like, it happened, like I need to improve on blah 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 and get up the next day and work harder. And I think like some people just talk on and on about how they played a bad round of golf, and one, now I realize that golf doesn't define me as a person, which I was so obsessed with golf before everything happened that it really did define me as who Taylor is. And now I know I'm working on and like know better who I am, that I can go to a bad round of golf and shake it off. And I think not everyone has that, and a lot of people in our world are thinking so bad about the negatives. And I'm not saying that I don't, but I'm working hard to not do it.
Yeah, I think I saw something the other day that your five closest friends, the average of those five is who you are. So if you're
I
around
love that.
five really positive people every day, or great job, Taylor, good try, nice putt, good try at school, great talk that you gave on mental health, and everybody around you is uplifting you, and you take the average of the five closest friends, that is kind of like looking in the mirror.
Yeah. It just made me think of my teammates because I'm here and they're all like somehow they're all like my sisters already, and they're
Right.
the most positive people. Like I got here and it was new to be around different people, but automatically they're cheering for me, and I was like, I've never had like true friends like this. Like they want me to do well in every part of my life. They're picking me up when I'm down, and it's so easy in golf to like compete, especially at a big school like Florida, and they're not like that. They're cheering for you in qualifying, and I'm just like, this is incredible. Like the whole world needs to be like this, but unfortunately it's not. But if we can have more people that want others around them to do well, and that's what like my mood is so good all the time, like at Florida, just because people around me are so amazing.
And I'm sure when you talk to your therapist and people that are in the know of how this works, you do need to allow yourself time to get off that optimism train. It's hard to be on that
Yeah.
24/7. It's kind of
Mhm.
draining, and I allow myself to cry regularly.
Yeah.
But it's like I write about in my book. It's not the weight of pain that I'm crying about. It's I miss my son, and I'm free to I should be allowed to cry.
Yeah.
I miss my wife, and I should be allowed to cry. There shouldn't be any shame with that, especially coming from a man, because men are supposed to be strong and not show their emotions. And I'm really breaking that stigma because I cry every day in front of everybody. So I'm like a big baby, but I think
Yeah.
more men need to do that. Just again, as a sidebar about mental health, I think men carry a lot of weight of their stresses to their grave, and could be one of the reasons why we die so much younger than women. Is that the way we're tough on ourselves? Our our self criticism is so high. But going back to allowing yourself to feel pain, I think that's important, Taylor,
Yeah.
in grieving, or therapy, or trauma, or anything you're going through. Is that what? Maybe it's time for me to just let it all go today. Shut
Yeah.
my door, shut my phone off, cry, look at the pictures, cry. And then all of a sudden I'm like, all right, it's it's like a halftime break. It's like, oh, I'm ready for the second half,
Yeah,
So
my
go ahead.
therapist used that term. She used, like, a vacation day, like, just it's not really a vacation letting yourself cry,
Hmm.
but it kind of is because you're for me, like, my vacation is laying in bed and crying and just watching Netflix or just doing something for myself, and
Hmm.
I like that term just because you kind of, like, you turn your phone off, you're not looking at it, you're putting your computer away for a little bit, even if you don't have a full day to take a vacation, but maybe it's a 5 minutes or an hour, but I really like that term because it is important.
It's that me time. You got to
Yeah,
have, you got to have, we, especially, you Division One or you college athletes, you're giving so much of your time. I mean, you're giving it to school, to practice, to, weights in the morning, to just everything you're doing is geared towards, playing, hitting a white ball around the course. That's what your whole life is designed for. Well, you have to have another life too. You got to have some ways to
mm,
get away from that. And I know for Ian, he sells shoes. So Ian has his online shoe company called IA Streetwear, and he's got 70, 80 pairs of shoes in his inventory. And he has this entrepreneurial mindset that, if golf will take me as far as I can go, but my backup plan is I want to be a shoe magnet. I want to make millions of dollars providing shoes to people. And
yeah,
I think that is a great distraction for Ian from the pressures of playing college golf. And so many kids don't have that release. It's just golf, golf,
yeah.
golf, 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 and then they're just miserable people.
Yeah, I think that's so important, like, the part of the reason that I feel like everything happened because I was, like, in COVID and all I could do was golf, work out, and school, and so, I mean, my outlets are, like, personally, like, hanging out with friends, my religion, and volunteering, like, those are some outlets that are important for me that help me
Hmm.
get off the mindset of golf, and I didn't have that, and, but I think it's really important to like what you said, like, Ian has that outlet, and everyone has something that or hopefully people have something that they can fall back on, when golf isn't going so well.
Yeah,
Because I
I'm
think
I'm
it
very.
definitely releases pressure
It
for
does,
me.
and you have to
Yeah,
have that release because the other types of releases aren't productive, like drinking and,
yeah,
smoking and lying to your parents and those type of things. Those aren't conductive or
yeah,
conducive to a healthy lifestyle. But um, so you have to be excited about your future because, not only do you have a tremendous future in golf, I mean, you have to be thinking big, uh, but the realism is for most athletes, playing professionally for many reasons doesn't materialize. So
yeah,
I always tell Ian, have that as your goal, but don't just have it as your only goal. Have a backup plan. So I think for you, Taylor, I see an opportunity for you to become, a very big advocate. Um, Maybe form your own business. There's lots of demand out there for people looking for advocates on mental health side. And I think that's got to be exciting for you, as a college sophomore to think, I've got really two passions going at once. Whereas a
yeah,
lot of kids don't have that. They have either none or one. And I think golf can be just an incredible door opener. I keep telling Ian this. It's like, Ian, you got to golf with Ricky Fowler, dude. I mean, think about
yeah,
that. You played 9 holes with Ricky, and then that summer you played 18 with Zach Johnson.
yeah.
And it
That's
wasn't
awesome.
because you're a good fisherman. you know,
Yeah.
it's because you're a golfer and
Yeah,
you raised money through golf and you got rewarded. So,
yeah,
golf is a tool. That's what I tell Ian. It's a tool. It's literally like a club in the bag. And for you and Ian and Sam, it can open up so many doors for your real passions, which may be mental health advocacy, you
yeah. I
know?
mean, through golf, I've met so many different people that I would have never met if it wasn't for golf. I mean, some of my closest friends are golfers, but also I've met people like Robert Black through golf. I mean, I would have never met him if it wasn't for that. And our passions about mental health aligned, and that's what kind of created the Impact Cup, along with my friend Phoebe Brinker, who's also a part of it.
Yeah, so I
But
got two questions. I'll ask him now because I have attention deficit and I'll forget. So I want to hear a little bit about Phoebe.
Yeah.
she's not here, but I want you to kind of tell me about her role in this, and does she have mental health issues that she's talked about as well? And then I want to talk about, as we wrap up the last 15 minutes, the actual day, the Impact Cup. What's it going to look like? What are you going to be doing that day? Kind of step us through. So let's talk about Phoebe first.
Yeah.
I know she goes to Duke University. Maybe how you guys met. What's her kind of reason why she's interested in this topic, and then we can spend a little bit of time talking about the actual Impact Cup.
So me and Phoebe met through the AJGA. We met playing probably at like 15. We met. Phoebe also helped me host the Senior Cup, which was the other tournament that I was talking about in the beginning of the podcast, that where we raised the $40,000 together.
Right.
And she's just a person that has always been there. We bounce ideas off each other really well, and I loved having her as a part of like the Senior Cup. And when I had the idea for we actually wanted to do like a 2.0 of the Senior Cup, but then when I had this idea, I was like, what if we can do this instead? And she loved it. She has her perspective is more like the student athlete, how that affects, or like how mental health affects a student athlete. I'm not sure how much mental health like how that has impacted her, but I know, I mean, all student athletes struggle with it.
Right.
If they don't, like, I mean, good for them. But I mean, we go throughout the day and barely have a minute to ourselves normally. Um, and I think it's nice to have a different perspective at Duke. And she's a high class golfer as well. So I think it's nice to have the two of us that are working together, because we're creating like the format of Impact Cup. So it's a Ryder Cup format. So there'll be a Team Taylor and a Team Phoebe, which is how we did the Senior Cup. And we initially wanted to do like 4-person teams, but the Ryder Cup style is so much more fun. Um, did you lose me?
It's okay. It's fine. So
Okay.
how many total golfers are going to be in the Impact Cup?
So we're shooting for 28.
Okay. How many
Um,
do you have filled right now?
we have 6 confirmed right now.
Okay. I'm going to
So
really
we're
try to get. I'm going to try to reach out to Sam Gary,
yeah,
and I'm going to give you his information. You can email him an invite,
that's good. Yeah,
because Sam
definitely.
would just be a slam dunk, because he is already an advocate, and I know he'd certainly be willing to help in any way he can.
Yeah, I love
Um,
that.
and
I love
this is for college golfers, right?
yeah, it's for college golfers. We might open it up to like seniors who are gonna about to be in college, but primarily for college golfers. So like what you said, like what the Impact Cup is gonna look like. So I think we're all staying at a hotel together. The first morning breakfast, and then we're gonna play the Bobby Jones golf course, which is
Now
also
this is
in
the
it.
25th of July, right?
25th of July.
Okay.
Um, and so we're gonna play there, and then have lunch, and then we're going to the In-Town Club, which is like a indoor facility with bays, and we're gonna do kind of like the mental health awareness
Mm,
part of it there. So like we're gonna have my therapist actually is gonna be there. Where me, Phoebe, and Clara is her name. We're trying to create fun activities, but that will also help the athletes. I'm one of them that I can tell you is we're doing a vision board. I really liked it because it's like, what are you passionate about? It could be golf, it could be outside of golf. I mean, my vision board doesn't have golf on it, but it's more of like what relaxes me. And I don't know, I like waking up to see, I have it in my room. I like
hmm.
waking up to see it every morning just because it reminds me of like what I love outside of golf. And I did it I love golf too. I mean, I'm a very competitive person, but there's a part of Taylor that likes other things like arts and crafts and
Hmm.
volunteering, going to the beach, meditating now is part of it.
Yeah,
um,
that's awesome.
so we're gonna
So
do different. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. So that day you're going to go do the kind of a mental health thing, and then
Yeah.
what's on the rest of the day, and then what's the next day look like? Because it's a 2-day deal.
Yeah, so the rest of the day, I think we're gonna make it optional to see how long people wanna stay there, because I know, like, talking about it can be, like, overwhelming, and we don't
Right.
wanna force people to be there, but we're gonna make it fun in the beginning, and then possibly, like, break out into different, like, groups and kinda talk about different things that come up with, being a student athlete, and then we're looking at possibly doing, like, a fun yoga, something like that, or fun, like, exercise activity. And then the next day, which is the real fun part, which is the 26th of July, we're all playing East Lake, where
Wow.
the tour championship is held for people that don't know that.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
And I think you were wanting me to maybe speak at some point.
Yeah, so at the in-town club, I think that's where we were gonna have you speak, if that
Yeah,
was
I'm
good
really
with
excited
you.
about that because
Yeah.
I think, in my book, there's 5 chapters dedicated to golf. So, I mean, my book's about losing a loved one to overdose, but golf is such a reoccurring theme in our story. That's golf saved my life. That's one of my chapters of my book, and it's not me playing golf. I don't play golf much anymore, but it's watching
Mm,
my son live out his dreams and honor his brother by playing the game that he always loved. And there's just so many weird metaphors and analogies and just so many stories. Like there's one chapter in the book where I'm trying to talk to Ian about drugs, which a conversation every parent has to have, sooner the better. And
yeah.
so I thought to myself, well, Ian's a golfer. So how could I relate golf to drugs? All right. So this is what I did. I said, Ian's, I think, see, he was, what was he, 13 when Seth died or 15? I can't remember. He was 15 when Seth died. So Ian would have been a sophomore. And I said, Ian, you know the best way to become the best bunker player in the world? What's the best way to become the best bunker player? And I let Ian answer that as a 12-year-old. No, he wasn't 12.
Can I ask what he said?
Yeah, I'll tell you what he said. Well, you're going to have it because I'm going to send you my book. But he said, yeah, Dad, I need to hit behind the ball about an inch, swing really hard, let the sand throw the ball out of the bunker. I need to get the right loft. I need to splash it. And he's going through all these different things. And I just let him go. And I'm laughing inside because I knew he's not going to get it right. And I go, well, yeah, those are all good, Ian. But how can you be the world's greatest bunker player? Well, Dad, practice 8 hours. So he starts going into things that most kids would. I said, no, the best way to be the world's greatest bunker player is don't go in the bunker in the first place. And I stopped and he just looked at me like, well, duh, Dad. And I said, okay.
I was waiting for this answer, and I was like, "I don't know what he's gonna say."
So I said, here's how it applies to drugs and alcohol. The best way to quit drugs is to what?
Don't
Never
use it in the
start.
first place, yeah.
Never start. And so that's where this never start idea, and that's where my don't start initiative came up, where I've got the DSI acronym for kids. And it's my idea to get kids to think about uh, the moment they're presented an opportunity to do drugs or alcohol. So the Don't Start Initiative, that's a DSI. That's what I call it. The acronym's ABC, Taylor. And what this means is I'm trying to think of like an eighth or seventh grader or sixth grader. They're not very cerebral. They're very, very emotional. So how could
Mm.
I think of a quick thing they can pop in their head? So they're at a football game. Somebody says, hey, let's go have a vape. How can this seventh grader get out of this situation very quickly? Well, ABC is my acronym. A is awareness. So just be aware now. So ABC, everybody can think of ABC as an acronym. They don't have to think too far to just recall that. So A is awareness. Okay, I'm in the situation that my dad and my mom told me I was going to be in, right? Every parent says you're going to be offered drugs and alcohol at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here I am. Now I'm there. I'm aware. And then here's the really pivot point. B is breathing. And if you breathe through your nose, you can't talk. So I'm going to get kids to take a deep breath through their nose. So, and then this is all like 5 seconds because you got to be able to get out of this situation very quickly. So you're in a parking lot, kids are offering you a vape and you're 7th grade and you're like nervous. How am I going to get out of this? Okay. I'm aware I'm here. Breathe through my nose. I can't talk. All right.
Yeah, I just breathe through my nose to like
You
envision that.
can.
I didn't realize that. That's
And
so
so
funny.
that gets you, and you know all the benefits of breathing. That's what
Yeah.
meditation's based on, you know.
Mhm.
And the breathing then allows you to start formulating the choice, and that's the C: awareness, breathing, choose. And then I've got this thing where I want kids to conceptualize a white chalkboard of a body on the cement, and I call it the walker chalk. So you need to walk from the situation, or you're going to potentially be chalk on the cement. And I know I got to be dramatic, but I come from a place where I have a child that died from this stuff, so I feel like I
Yeah.
feel like I can be dramatic.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that is a one thing I got to thinking about kids is that, you know, these are tools I'm trying to get out there. So, you know, I can talk about this when I'm at your place. I have some other ideas I've kind of formulated, but you know, what you're doing is awesome. I think your story needs to be told on a bigger stage. And I think what's going to happen, Taylor, is you're going to have lots of requests for people for your time to share your story if you aren't already. I'm going to guess that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to sharing my story. I think if you asked me like a couple months ago, I'd say I wasn't,
Right.
just because I wasn't ready to share it. But I know I can help people now, and I don't want others to feel alone like I did. Because in the beginning, I was like, I thought I was alone. I was crying in my bedroom alone, and I'm
Were your
definitely here
parents
for other people.
were your parents worried about you kind of talking about this publicly?
No, they're proud of me for it.
Awesome, because I know some parents are going to say, don't don't talk about that because then people will think maybe you got a problem or maybe, and that's the stigma that's out
Yeah.
there, you know.
Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even think I asked for their permission to talk about it. I
Ask for their forgiveness,
yeah,
not their permission.
because I remember just telling them, "Oh, I'm hosting another charity event. Here's what it's about."
That's great.
Because I got it approved by Beth and Kevin, and I was like, "Oh my God, mom and dad, I'm so excited. I'm doing this, blah blah blah." And they were like, they're very proud of me for doing it. I don't think they had any hesitation for me sharing my story. My mom has her own journey, and she says that I've helped her a lot, which both my parents are big role models in my life.
I
Um,
got to thinking of that Ohio State football player that just came out the last
I
couple
saw
weeks.
that.
Yeah, I,
Yeah,
that's an indication of what you're doing is needed. You know, this
yeah,
is this big, strong, manly looking, you know, guy that is struggling with mental health. And
yeah,
I go back to that Stanford uh, uh, soccer player, female soccer player at Stanford that took her own life. That
yeah,
was like a month ago, 2 months ago. You know, those are just two stories of two individual people. And you got to think that every team, on every sports team, in every sport, in every town in this country, there's somebody on that team, two, three, four, five, six kids on that team that are struggling with something,
yeah,
you know.
for
And I
sure.
think it's important that they feel like that they're not alone.
Yeah, actually, I want to share this with
Yeah.
you. It's actually lit right now, so it's a candle that honors people that have taken their own life.
Mm,
I just bought it. One of the girls
awesome.
that spoke on a podcast with me, or it was a community call. She's from Stanford. She just created it. It's called Candles for a Cause and Unite Our Light. So every time that you light it, you're honoring someone that took their life. Um, a guy that I was talking to over the summer, his roommate took his own life. So that was my first like
Hmm.
where it happened, like, in my own community, because I was reading about suicides increasing, and especially with athletes, and
Mm-hmm.
ever since that happened, I feel like it keeps happening, and when that happened, it was like, I really need to do this event, like, it was an idea in my head, but that's what drove me to do it.
Yeah, and that's goes back to my quote that's on all of our materials. And you know, we have shirts and stuff, living undeterred stuff.
Yeah,
It's purpose becomes passion when it gets personal.
yeah,
And so if you just think about that, purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. And what happens in life is something happens. an event. In my case, it was death and alcoholism, things like that. And all of a sudden now I become an advocate. In your case, it was, things that were going on in your head your freshman year, that
Yeah.
this light bulb went off that, hey, this is something that I need to deal with. If I don't, this could be something that gets just progressively worse as I get older. And
Yeah.
you had the ability to be cognizant of that, to realize that this was a problem. A lot of kids don't have that. A lot of adults don't have that ability, Taylor. And that's where they just perpetuate this misery, and then ultimately they maybe take their own life, and which is the worst possible outcome. I mean, we need to stop preventing the deaths first and then kind of work backwards. I saw a stat the other day. I'm going to talk about this on my presentation. 776 Americans a day die from overdose, suicide, and alcohol abuse. That's 776 human beings every day in the United States. Now, you just take one of those, and just pick one random statistic, one number, pull it out, look at the picture of that human being that died. There's a mom, there's a dad, there's brothers and sisters, there's coworkers, there's teammates, there's friends, there's neighbors, there's this community of people around this one human being that died. So you think of the collateral damage, you think of the ripple effect of one life that's lost, and then you take 770, and then you take it for a full year, and you can see where our country is just so struggling with, this inability for people to figure out their own ways to deal with mental health issues. And
Yeah.
that's why what you're doing has to be done. I'm super proud of you. I
Thank
can't wait
you.
to meet you. Ian is so excited to golf with you as well.
I'm really excited.
He's
It's
really
gonna be a
excited
great
to meet your
day.
parents and talk about these things, and then share your story with more people and just keep helping, because I'll tell you right now, you're not helping one person. You're helping thousands of people,
Thank you.
and that's got to make you feel pretty good.
Yeah, I it's not, um I don't think I'm, like, aware of how many people I'm helping. I'm trying to be happy within myself and hoping that it will impact others, and, I mean, as you said, it will. I'm still wrapping my head around that I'm actually, like, putting all of this together and, and stuff. I struggle with, like, believing in myself,
Hmm.
still to this day, so it's something that I'm working on, and, like, that I'm actually doing this, so but if I can help people, anyone that's listening to this, I'd love to talk to, and yeah.
Well, make sure you take time to be grateful for what you have. That's
Yeah.
my key thing. I tell the boys, Roman and Ian. My youngest son, Roman, he's a senior in high school,
Mhm.
and I tell him the same thing. Make sure you're grateful for the time you had with your mom. She's not here now, but you had great times with her. So let's focus on that.
Yeah.
You're grateful about the time you had with your brother. He's not here either. And people down the road are going to die as well, and you got to really, you never know when someone you talk to, it's the last time you're going to talk to them.
Yeah.
And I think after you've been through it, you realize that every relationship is valuable. And as much as you're trying to help other people through what you're doing, make sure you don't neglect, helping yourself as well. And that's being grateful. Just shutting your eyes and going, man, I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to help people. I mean,
Yeah.
um, because I think that's what keeps us going. I struggle with sometimes staying motivated in my projects. This tour is going to be massively, it's going to be wearing and tearing. And you know, the people on the RV, we're either going to love each other more or we're going to hate each other in about 2 weeks of traveling together. You know how that goes with
Yeah.
family trips and stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited that you guys are stopping. I'm really grateful that you're gonna be a part of it too. And I wanted to say, like, I'm sure you heard of it, but my favorite like meditation is like the gratitude meditations. 'Cause I
Hmm.
think those are super important, like what you said, just to reflect on like my own life and to wake up. And I mean, because when I was in bed over the summer, I was like didn't want to wake up, and now every day I wake up practice gratitude, and I'm grateful for the day that's in front of me, and it's something that I've learned to do.
Well, I want to give, as we wrap up the show here, I want to give a shout out to the AJGA
Yes.
and to tell them how much they've meant to me in my life. And Kevin Rinker and Beth Doctor are both in my book. I interview Beth in my book. And I think what they stumbled upon with Leadership Links and this way to harness goodwill from junior golfers and collectively, each individual golfer has this, passion, but then you add it all up and the goodwill that comes from this is just awe inspiring to me. I mean,
It's
and
incredible.
I'm just so happy Ian got involved in Leadership Links, and I'm so happy that that golf was such an important part of our story. And like I said, AJGA. I don't even look at AJGA as a golf a tour. I look at it as a culture, as a family.
Yeah, it is,
You
and
know,
I'd like to thank them too. I mean, I guess my childhood was growing up playing in golf events through the AJGA, and then I mean, I didn't start participating in Leadership Links until after I graduated high school is when I hosted the Senior Cup, and I'm so grateful to be a part of the community at a different level than just golf because what they do is just it's amazing. I mean, there's not a word to describe it because they do so much for the community, and each junior golfer that participates and hosts their own event, they've done so much for the community too, and just to be amongst, a group of individuals that care so much about the
Mhm.
community is just really special, and I mean, Beth and Kevin are both 2 amazing people. I wouldn't have put the senior cup together or to a level without Beth. She does amazing work behind the scenes. Not everyone realizes that how much work she does, so a shout
Is
out to
Kevin
her
going to
too.
be there that day?
Yes, he is.
Awesome,
As at least he said so. So
awesome.
hopefully.
Have you seen the podcast interview I did with him?
No, I haven't. I
You'll
need to
have to
listen
go
to
to
that.
the Living Undeterred website and then
Okay.
go back about 8 or 9, 10 months ago, and you'll see the interview I did. But that was, I've always felt Kevin. The thing about the AJGA is that some organizations and some people just kind of have that it factor.
Yeah.
They figured it out. I mean, even having you junior golfers write handwritten notes to sponsors and donors,
Yeah. They
nobody
teach
does that
you
anymore.
yeah, it's something my dad taught me. When I was being recruited, I wrote handwritten letters to the college coaches that had the time to take out for me to go see them. But I mean, I learned so many life lessons through the AJGDA with like
Right.
the banquets, the writing the notes, just talking to different people, talking to their staff, the interns that got to go to so many different events. I mean, I learned so much from them, and I am beyond grateful for that. I mean, I was homeschooled through high school, so the AJGA was like, my outlet to meet so many different people, and they provided that and so much more.
Well, I'll say this, Taylor. I think, you have a bright future ahead of you. And I think
Thank you.
so many junior golfers, the little kids, that look up to you and Ian and Sam Gary, you guys, I know they look at you as golfers, but you're more than a golfer, and I think you guys are making a big difference, and you are the next generation. You three are the one that'll be running this country someday or this world, and
Yeah.
so the better frame of mind you can be with your mental health, the better it will be for society. So I think what you're doing is awesome. I'm here to support
Thank
what you
you.
guys are doing, and I really am excited about
I can't wait.
having the RV parked out there for a whole day right on the golf course. And I'd like to get involved in interviewing a lot of people that are in your project, and
Yeah.
trying to do our part to promote this as well. So, how long are you taking donations up till? Is there a cutoff date?
There's not, so you can donate after the event
Oh,
too.
okay.
The website is up and running, but I was gonna say, like, people that wanna share their stories, like, I know some junior or not collegiate golfers that are gonna play, I'm sure they have their own story, if you wanna interview them, because I know Phoebe also has her own story, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, a lot of us have gone through stuff in life. So
Well, listen, I appreciate it very much for your time. This has been one of my favorite podcasts I've ever done,
thank
because I
you.
just think that what you're doing is awesome. And took me 52, I'm 55 now, but it took me to age 52 for me to start thinking about helping people with mental health awareness. And you guys are starting it at such a young age. You've got such a bright future ahead of you guys. So, well, good luck with what you're doing with your event, and then also good luck with your school, and good luck on the golf course. Um, I hope all those work out well for you in the next couple of years. But I look forward to talking to you later. And any last things you want to add about anything we talked about today in regards to helping people maybe get through this daily struggles that they're dealing with each day?
I want maybe just say to never give up. Just my therapist, I didn't have any motivation to get up in the morning. I lost my love for golf, but she was like, one day you're gonna keep getting up and it's gonna come back. And it did, but it took time. And I think that's something that hold close to my heart just because, I mean, every day is a battle, but if you never give up, you're gonna get somewhere. But thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Well, and I'm going to tell you to keep living undeterred, but I don't think you're going to have
Yeah.
a problem with that. So,
Thank you.
all right. Well, thanks a lot, Taylor. We'll talk to you soon.